Baby, cool your jets is what I say when crazy eyes are shot my way. I need a fix and I need one quick. You know there are things that make me tick. Yeah, I wanna breathe and I'm on my knees, cause I need some breathing room.
Hi and welcome to Brainstorm, Saskatchewan's only skeptical podcast where we talk about news, politics, science, and religion in a fun and intelligent way. This is episode 8, recorded on April 19th, 2014. In this one, Destin, Mike, Justin, and Lana talk about Peter Labarbera and the pro-love group, freedom of speech, speed of light travel, and a couple other things.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready to get into some
Topics?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hooray.
I had a couple I wanted to broach. I don't know if anybody has anything off the cuff that they want to start with. They can go ahead.
Peter Labarbera.
That's
I know
actually-
you've got a partial topic on the hypocrisy of things surrounding that.
Yeah.
But I was out stomping the pavement. Was that just last weekend?
Yep.
That he was out Friday. So yeah, a week ago ish. On Friday, and then the Saturday, I was out carrying around signs, and I was quite proud that my husband and the 4 kids all came out too, and so there was about 70 people there altogether. So we were not a good portion of the group, but there was a lot of really nice families. And one of the things that's come out of it is that, you know, we've all decided we like each other mostly and want to hang out and do some other things, and maybe and our kids all like each other.
So community through mutual disgust.
Kind of.
We should introduce
Let's all
this.
together and hate things together.
Well, it was mutual, some outrage, but it was mainly a desire to express that our community's better than this.
Absolutely.
So I'm just
And
gonna
it wasn't
interject-
about hate.
Just to interject
Better
really
than
quick.
what?
The whole Peter
We need-
Labarbera thing, for people
Thank
that
you.
don't know,
Okay.
was a guy that came to Weyburn. He was invited by the pro-life group to speak at a pro-life rally, and his whole platform is just anti-gay. So I think if you're pro-life, you should be pro-gay, because gay people don't get pregnant very easy. I don't know. So why would you invite an anti-gay person, for one thing? Mm-hmm. And another, he's extremely outspoken and ridiculously, I'd say almost to the point of being Westboro Baptist Church-ish about it, which is fine because that's actual adherence to the Bible, you know. But that's a different discussion that we'll get into in a bit. But basically, well, you were actually there. Why don't you explain
I
it a
was
bit
there. Basically the pro-life, SAS Pro-Life had invited Peter Labarbera along with a contingent of rather radical speakers as part of an entire agenda of quite radical speakers. And it seemed like the provincial board of directors is a bit more radical than the little regional boards. So they're very much going after an agenda of, you know, anti-liberal, anti-cultural change, regressive, very conservative values. And so under that umbrella, yes, is anti-abortion, absolutely. Anti-choice, anti-abortion, not just pro-life, anti all of that, and anti-gay, and anti-liberal everything. So they've made that very clear. And so I was there when the guy arrived, and he put up his, they set up their display to counter our little pro-love, happy rainbow, everybody love everybody signs. That's what it wasn't Peter Labarbera go away. Like, that was not the message. It was
Right, because
basically
that's the message you don't want to send.
That was not the message.
Right.
It wasn't
You
fuck
can't
you,
fight
go
hate
away.
with hate.
No,
Right.
Weyburn is, you know, we want a welcoming town. We represent the people who are welcoming in this rural Saskatchewan
Right.
community and are proud to be the face of that. And in order to counter the idea that, if Peter Labarbera is welcome anywhere in Canada, well, it should be rural Saskatchewan. Well, rural Saskatchewan sort of put their hand up and said, well, actually, he doesn't really fit in here.
Yeah.
And this is not the place where he's going to find the arms all open for him. So he'd set up pictures at the building across the street with decapitated fetuses where our kids could see them. And then there was one that showed a picture of bodies heaped up from the Holocaust, and right below it was a mangled fetus. And this is what, there's 2, 3, 4-year-olds, dozens of them hanging out across the street.
Now, in defense of those images, really quick, there's no real difference between that and Christianity. Just saying.
Well,
Continue.
if they were showing gory, bleedy crucifixion pictures across the street on posters to all of our kids, we'd probably object to that too. But the cops had taken pictures of those pictures in order to decide and review them whether or not that was actually against, I don't know, community standards or whatever. Because there are limits to what we allow people to show for visual images out on public property and where people can see them.
Things
That's
that may be in
decency
poor
standards.
taste,
Yeah, and these were.
From the sounds of it, yeah.
It was completely disgusting. And I think it was actually embarrassing to a lot of the people that were part of the pro-life meeting. So they didn't show them the next day. They were asked not to show them the next day. And almost no one wanted to be seen outside holding the signs. It was Peter Labarbera and the other guy.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
What?
Bill
Cock or something. I don't know. Whatever his name is.
That guy
Bill, that's the local crazy, joined up with the imported crazy. And we're standing outside with disgusting signs. And we were singing. We were singing Bob Marley. We were singing the Beatles. We were singing Love, Love, Love. Like that's... And the more disgusting their signs got, the louder we sang. Until sort of the evening, it was like... It went on until about 5 o'clock or something. And then the next day was the same thing, and it was raining, sleeting, blowing wind, and we were out there with our signs and bopping along to whatever kind of songs we pleased. And I was proud to be a part of it. But anyways, I'm talking too much.
Well, good on you. Not for talking too much, just for voicing.
To continue
your
the story, then he comes up to Regina, goes to the university, asks them if he can set up a table outside, which they have control over. They get to decide whether you get to actually push whatever it is you're pushing at the university, and they denied him. And he went outside and set up a table anyway, and then got arrested under a charge of mischief for doing so.
And then was so whiny.
He wasn't originally arrested. He was asked to leave the premises by the police, and he refused to leave unless they arrested him.
Campus
That's
cops,
right.
yeah.
And he basically did that because he wanted that public showing.
He wanted to get arrested and persecuted.
Well, yeah, and now he's back home and he's trying to get money from it by fundraising.
And so is Crazy Bill.
For being arrested for... Was the charge mischief or trespassing?
It was
mischief.
It was
But
mischief.
it originally was trespassing, and then it was, I understand, changed to mischief.
I see.
So...
I don't know nearly enough about the law.
But the reason for it was because he was basically making a nuisance of himself and told to leave and refused to.
Right.
And a bit of backstory: before either of those happened, he'd been at a different university, and he was actually given an auditorium, and he had a bunch of students come out, and it wasn't just him; it was a bunch of other people too. As soon as he got up to speak, almost all of them left, and left him basically an empty room, to do his hate speech in.
See, I think that's a better way to do it. Don't give him the publicity. Sure, you want a soapbox to stand on? Welcome. You're welcome to it.
Yeah.
Here's an auditorium we're not using.
We've had a lot of feedback from people who've left Weyburn, basically, that they have been enormously impressed. Mostly it was gay people that had left Weyburn that said, I never thought that, that would ever be a place that I could be. Well,
because of the stereotypes of small town.
But it's not stereotypes.
Right?
It's it has been the reality up until pretty recently, and this has brought it to a head. The controversy has brought it to a head where people have to kind of decide, if they're going to be welcoming and say, you're welcome in our community, or we expect you to behave as a second-class citizen and preferably go elsewhere. And the message that people have gotten pretty loud and clear for a lot of decades has been, please go elsewhere. I think
Right.
that was the feedback that we were kind of getting. But now they're getting a message that maybe there's a new leaf turning.
The one thing with that is that might have been the old standpoint, like the old viewpoint for decades. But we have things called laws and rights. And since equality is something that has passed for marriage and everything for gay people, you can either just accept it and move on, or you can be a dick. Those are your only two choices. You can't fight against it because the fight's already been won. There is no fight anymore. The hypocrisy I was going to mention had nothing to do with the group itself. It's the name of the group for one thing. Intolerance Free Weyburn should actually be partially intolerance free, or
We don't tolerate
categorically-
intolerance.
well, no, that's just it. But I happen to know a lot of the people that are the most loud and boisterous out of that group because I lived with them, and I can tell you, I can name at least 4 of the main people in the group that are intolerant, racist bigots. So it should be subjectively intolerant.
It's interesting how some people decide to draw the line.
Correct my English.
It's not that easy. I charge $35 an hour, man.
Yeah.
Because you're not intolerant if you accept gay people, but you don't accept immigrants.
Yeah, but you would hope and expect that other people in the group would say, okay, we have the opportunity to do a welcome to the community, all of you newcomers, immigrants, welcome to Weyburn. And if there are people that are going, I don't think they should be here. I think they're stealing our jobs. I think blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, sit down and have a discussion about it and try to make some sense. But I don't think that just being, exclusionary or, deciding that whatever, you don't belong here because you were born somewhere else is a...
It's called being intolerant.
Yeah, it's...
That's my problem.
Arguably.
Like, people like Regan Lanning, she's awesome. I have nothing but respect for her.
You shouldn't name the names of the people you don't have respect for, just for what it's worth.
Well, obviously, that's why I'm going to say I'm going to
Okay.
to point out that I have no problems with Regan Lanning. She's actually a fantastic human being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it wasn't directed at her in any way. There are a few other individuals, and by conversations I've had with them, they'll know who they are anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If they even know how to use a computer well enough to figure out how to find our podcast.
Yeah.
But and I realized it was a bit of a movement, and bodies are important, like having a number of people. But at what point do you control the kind of bigots you allow into that group?
Well,
At
I
one
don't
point,
think
is
you
it
can
tolerance
for
or
that
intolerance?
particular event. If you got people holding signs that or expressing viewpoints that really don't fit with what the group is trying to portray at that particular day, and at that point you make a stink about it. But you're not always going to have everybody that turns out to a Facebook group agreeing with you on 100%
On a myriad of things.
On a myriad of things, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, even small steps towards improvement are still steps.
Tolerance isn't a broad spectrum, though.
Yeah.
It's pretty specific. You're either tolerant of different people or you're not. Mm-hmm. Whether they be gay or Chinese or handicapped or East Indian or anything.
Yeah. And there has been some discussions of maybe what do we do next? Is there another event that we want to do? But it's still, this is a very new little thing that's been brought about by the inviting this bigot to the town. So it's interesting.
I just think it's funny to see bigots yelling at bigots to stop being bigots.
Oh, indeed.
There's a little bit of what's that word? It starts with an I, ends with a Y. Isn't that irony? Maybe
I suppose.
a little bit of irony
Yeah.
What I found the most amusing about the whole situation was all of the whining about free speech.
there.
Oh, it was so painful. All of the, I'm being persecuted because somebody, and we're homo-fascists and homo-communists or homo-Marxists or
If I'm a homo-fascist, I want a really nicely detailed uniform
outfit. Oh, yeah.
to wear.
I know.
And if I'm singled out as a homo communist,
Or it's homo-Marxist, I think
okay.
was the term.
Homo-Marxist.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
If I'm one, that means everybody else is too.
It's pretty meaningless stringing together of words, that one is.
It is. Oh,
Yeah.
it's just pure shock value.
Yeah.
I mean that's their whole angle. They have no support but sheer intrinsic shock value for everything.
It's an
From the
emotional
signs-
appeal.
From the signs to merely showing up to be arrested.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a smoke show.
Yeah, and it's all an appeal to emotion that has no good logical points. And he kept saying, I just want to go there and have discussions with people. He never made one single effort to debate or discuss anything with anyone there. He was there to complain and whine about how mean we were with all of our pro-love signs across the street and how terribly put out he was about all of us. And then, how terrible Canada is. We're like North Korea because he got basically asked to leave the country because he was making a nuisance of himself. Well, this is our country and our laws. And basically he's trying to get these little groups of radicals to rescind the charter of rights that we have. Excuse me, go home. Like, we don't need somebody coming here who supports the terrible gay laws in Uganda and supports pushing them to criminalize being gay. He would support trying to criminalize being gay here, which is completely against our laws.
Well, don't you know?
Or otherwise known as Christian.
Yeah. What a socioeconomical powerhouse Uganda is. How they should be the ones leading by example, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where we want to be as Uganda.
Do we have another topic? I don't know if we've exhausted that one.
I think that one's.
I
pretty
think
much
so.
Okay.
done.
Yeah.
Sure, unless we're going to talk about free speech more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you got stand on the soapbox and give us hell. Lay that free speech on me, baby.
I like that one notion. If the best thing you can say about your position is that it's not literally illegal to express, then your position is pretty crappy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can go on the same little corner of the world as the people from Stormfront and the KKK and, people that run around. There was that this is slightly off topic, but there was that shooting of, what was it? A bunch of people that were leaving a synagogue or something. There's a bunch of Jews got shot
Not sure.
I don't know.
by a KKK guy that was saying things about the Jews. I'd have to Google it up to figure out exactly where that was. But there's a lot of those activities that have been linked to websites like Stormfront. Stormfront's a website where they basically collect any instance where somebody white who got killed by somebody black or got raped by somebody black or something. They'll collect them all and then make editorialize on how, the black people are
To incite
to incite
vigilantism.
people. Well,
Yeah.
yes, basically it's providing fodder to people that are vigilantes and that are trying to organize against the groups that they see as a threat to the country, which is everyone but basically white Protestant Christians.
Why can't people just figure out that being good to one another is consistent with leading a pleasant life and being shitty to one another is not? And just relax, be good to one another.
Overland Park, Kansas.
Sorry to sound like a hippie.
That's where it was.
But
No,
this
but
is
I'm
all
pretty-
just ridiculous.
I'm pretty sure that's one of the things that their dude, what's his name? Jesus?
Oh,
Teaches?
yeah.
Isn't that a thing?
I've heard of him.
Be good to people and
I don't know. Didn't he say things like everybody who
Everybody
is
who
to
doesn't
worship
agree with me is going to die.
Oh yeah, everybody who doesn't agree with me should
he
be
said terrible things.
tortured and whatnot.
Yeah.
Everybody should hate their families. And
Yeah, but even
his dad did a couple crappy things, like killed everybody on the planet
twice.
He's a loving, caring God, that guy.
he is, yeah. Well, now.
He mellowed with
Sorry.
age.
Yeah, yeah. Strange how a perfect being can
Change
mature.
his mind.
So on the subject of free speech, is something like, a Stormfront website or Operation Rescue, which is an anti-abortion organization that's been linked to attacks and bombings and the killing of George Tiller and that type of thing. I'm not sure how you decide where that's free speech and where it is basically criminally organizing to
When it turns into hate
violence.
speech and hateful acts. And
Canada has hate speech laws, but the United,
United
States,
States
really
does not.
doesn't. So
Yeah.
they've got a lot more latitude on being able to sit there and
say
foment
whatever the
that
hell they
sort of
want.
thing. And Canada, they really have to keep it more under wraps, right?
It's all just political, though. The whole free speech thing goes back to at least John Stuart Mill, and as far as he's concerned, he was really, really pro free speech. There's almost no case under which you can stop a person from speaking their mind, or should. And then he sort of recants that in the next little bit in his book on liberty. He talks about the harms that people can put forth with their speech. So if you're, inciting a mob outside of the corn dealer's house, calling the corn dealer the starver of the poor, and the mob, with pitchforks and torches are all ready to go kill him and his family, then you're doing harm with your speech and you should be stopped. Mm-hmm. So if your speech actually harms people, it should be stopped. So now we have to decide what's going to harm people. How do we decide
if what you're
that?
saying is an actionable thing.
Sure. But
partially.
take a look
Yeah.
at people who are already oppressed, like, for example, gay people. If what they're doing is seeking equal rights with the rest of us, a person's hate speech against the gay community could be preventing them from gaining the rights they deserve to have.
Well, not
That
even just
is a
that.
harm.
It's preventing them from being able to walk down the street without worrying
Yeah,
about
that's
getting
It all depends
beat
on
up.
what your laws are. It doesn't, the rights and everything, like whatever.
You're right.
If we lived in Canada and gay people had no rights, if they didn't have the rights of equality, then them fighting for it would be illegal. If it was illegal for them to do so, law is law.
But I'm talking about morality, what ought to be the case, and so is John Stuart Mill, right? So I'm not talking about what is the case for free speech, because up here in Canada, it's not the same. Like,
No.
we don't have the First Amendment of the United States.
Yeah, we don't have free speech the way
no,
they do. at
No,
all.
not in that sense, not at all.
Because we don't need it.
I'm not so sure about that.
We draw a line a little before they do on,
But it's not a
basically
black and white
inciting
issue.
hate.
It's
Which
a
it's
difficult
odd
That's what
because
judges
with
are
the
for.
with the history that they've had of race riots and all of that, you'd think they would have even more reason to try to suppress hate speech and suppress people firing up mobs and riots. But Canada doesn't. Canada has almost no history of that, but yet we've got the political will to say, because we're polite and we just say, no, we're not like that.
To look at that, the reason why the Americans aren't like us is because they have for-profit prisons. They
there's
don't. They
that.
don't want to calm down mobs. Governments want to excite mobs. They want to be able to suppress. It makes it easier for them to suppress any uprisings because
I think they'd
anybody
rather
that's
pick them
already
up individually from street corners while they're hanging out outside convenience stores.
well, no, they just let white people shoot them on their way home.
That too.
It's easier for them because if somebody's is a type of person that has a personality that's easy to incite, once they're incited, once their ire is raised and you arrest
Fuck
them.
you.
That was obviously directed at Lana for some reason.
No, I'm just joking.
They're easier to pick
being
up
dumb.
en masse or in groups.
right.
And then once you have them incarcerated, they're out of the way. They're not. You can't rebel from a 6x4 room.
Well, and it's a great way and I'm going to wear the tinfoil hat for a minute. It's a great way to keep the left hand from knowing what the right hand is doing.
That's part of the same thing.
Because those things are what make it to the media, and what bleeds leads, and what we end up talking about and what we end up discussing en masse is the shooting or the stabbing or the dude like we're talking about right now, the dude who's talking about anti-abortion. We're not talking about the actions of policy, and we're not talking about the actions of government.
It's all wagging the dog. All of it.
Exactly.
On somewhat this issue, one of those stories I've been following this week is that Bundy Ranch thing, and the media has basically been the tail wagging the dog on that one to a great extent. They're inciting a riot. They are so wanting that to turn into a shooting match that they're basically trying to fire up and instigate that. And then as soon as it looked like it was dying down, they're like, "Oh, I think somebody's going to come and do a night raid. I wonder when the night raids are going to start. I wonder when the government's going to come and get you all. You guys better get worried and, go make some more
Get your
headlines.
guns.
Well,
Run, get your guns."
it's all, and they cower behind speculation. Well, we think that this may be the case. We've had a report. Somebody told us once upon a time that maybe possibly there could be a night raid one of these days. Maybe you should tune back in later to see if the night raid went down.
Yeah.
Keep watching our show. Keep giving us ratings. And
when it's an entirely fictional, somebody told me maybe.
Yeah.
I think most of the time they just sit there with their little imaginations and think up, this would be a really good way to fire up this story, or this would be a really good question to ask somebody. I should pretend as though lots of people are saying, this particular problem with somebody, and even though they've just drummed it up and invented it in their head.
I don't think that they have Gumby. I don't think that they have an agenda. I actually don't think that en masse news corporations and the people that work for them are smart enough to have an agenda that is as deep as maybe what we're discussing. I think it's just generally sensationalism generates eyes watching the screen.
Yeah.
That's it.
For anybody that's not familiar with the Bundy Ranch situation, again, we just started talking about it without explaining what it is.
Yeah, we should probably I don't actually know what it is. I'm just talking
in
about
Nevada,
the news.
there's a rancher who's been letting his cows pasture on public land.
In the desert.
In the desert. Well, it's public land. It's publicly owned land. Mm-hmm. And he's been asked for years to rein his cattle in because it's public land. And in that desert, there's actually some protected dirt.
There's desert tortoises that are somewhat threatened.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and other animals, other creatures, right? So, and it's not his land. So he's fattening his cows on public land.
And he has been told to pay $1.25 per animal unit a month. That here would be $20 to $30 probably per animal unit a month. It's a pittance. He's being asked to pay well below the going rate. And it doesn't matter that the cows are out in desert, because basically if the cows are out there and finding enough to eat that they're sustaining themselves, then they've earned their animal unit month. They're going to deliver a calf and make that farmer money, even though they're wandering around out in the desert. So they're finding enough food to get by. And this guy for 21 years has refused to pay because he does not recognize the authority of the federal government in the state of Nevada.
Anything. He's one of those free men on the land people.
Sovereign citizens. He only recognizes the local sheriff as the authority and nothing else. Yeah. So all of these gun-toting buddies have been alerted by various right-wing organizations, including probably the Koch brothers, to go. The Americans for Prosperity seem to be rather pushing this agenda. And one of the more skeptical people that have been watching this have been saying what this really is about is trying to separate the federal government from their public lands and have them partitioned out for private sale and to the states, who would then make them available for private sale so that people like the Koch brothers can use it so that desert can be exploited. And, at the moment, it is being used for some purposes, but it is in large sense being preserved. To a great extent, it's being preserved as its original state.
So that would explain the lack of a wall being put up or a ditch being dug that the cows couldn't cross.
Right. But it doesn't take much. It takes wire cutters to get through a barbed wire fence. Like that's we're
I'm not
talking
talking
about
barbed wire, but
we're talking like
Berlin Wall of the
hundreds-
Deep South.
We're talking hundreds of thousands of acres in the desert.
It's Nevada. It's not
Hundreds
Deep
of
South.
thousands of acres. Oh, okay.
And
It's not a
Nevada.
little area. This is hundreds of thousands of acres, if not millions of acres, that he's been running his cows out on. He's got 1,000 head of cattle. That's not a small rancher for that area. So he's a millionaire. He's not a little poor rancher with 8 cows.
The solution's actually really simple. Since it's on private land or public land, his cows are not insured on public land. So people should just go out and shoot all his fucking cows while they're on public property.
They'll probably get shot themselves. You start a
Yeah,
big
that's the
old
thing.
range war. And all these
That's the
cowboys,
thing.
that's what
Depends
they
who's
want.
higher up and has a bigger scope.
Yeah.
And in the States, everybody's got a big scope.
Well, there's I'd read a story just yesterday, I think, about there was a couple of sisters that were in their like 80s that for a long time they were Shoshone and they had been running cattle out in the desert and refusing to pay, but they actually had some pretty good legal standing, but it had never been recognized. There was no proper treaty with the Shoshone Indians where they gave up rights to their land. It was taken. So if this had been an Indian land claim, well, you might have more people on their side saying, you should really, have waived, a somewhat nominal fee for these people because they have a legitimate and demonstrable land claim. Whereas this guy his family were Mormon settlers that came out to the desert, and he is not making at all any kind of Indian land claim. They were squatters originally, squatting on Indian land. That's where they came from.
Right.
Following those golden plates.
I would like to see a nonviolent resolution.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's, I'm surprised that after 20 years, sanctions have been put in place against his property or against his ability to do dealings with the government.
Well, they have. He's refused to accept any of
He's
them.
had court orders, and
It's not about court orders. I mean, his tender could no longer be good because you don't recognize him as an American citizen. You can rescind his citizenship. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of legal loopholes there, but if he no longer recognizes the authority of the state doesn't necessarily need to recognize him.
I'm not sure what the
But I don't
precedent
know.
is for that.
I don't know what the precedent is. I don't law very well.
Yeah, like you would think they could, seize
Not
some
US law.
assets or something, but maybe he keeps all his money in his mattress under
mattress,
his
yeah.
bed, or
Yeah.
Yeah. The American government can't decide that American currency is no longer legal tender.
Yeah, but what they could do is that they could actually his property they could ditch, and then they could make him have to immigrate to leave his driveway. So they could send up Border Patrol at his house.
I don't know.
Yeah. They can.
I
make
would
his-
buy it. I'd buy his ranch for $50.
Or they could just decide, okay, fine, you don't recognize us, you're sovereign land.
Exactly.
Go
That's
away.
what I'm saying. These are sovereign land.
No.
Now to
You
leave
can't-
your house,
can't
you have to
power
immigrate.
or water.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, they should be able to figure out how to turn
That's-
off his fucking water.
That's the nonviolent way. And then the guy goes away and stops being an issue. Who's he going to complain to? He's not even American anymore.
All of his buddies with guns.
Wonderful.
Well, and that's just it. The government's trying to settle it without any of that. They're trying to make it
Right.
come to a peaceful revolution.
Well,
And
they're
that's
trying to
resolution.
not get their employees shot over $1 million.
and I would rather the government takes a standpoint of nonviolence and non-negotiation with what is essentially a small act of terrorism.
Yeah.
Well, the simplest thing they can say is, okay, here's the deal. You keep your cows on your own land. Pay the fine. Or we will have drones kill all your cows when they're on public land.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to do against airstrikes from, 30,000 feet?
Yeah.
Nothing.
I don't know.
And
But
it's a desert. It's not like they're going to hurt anybody.
I don't know. They might kill some tortoises.
Is that how high up drones actually kill things from?
I don't know
Well,
how
I don't
high
know.
drones fly.
I
I
don't,
don't think it is.
Stay tuned next podcast where we figure out the average altitude of the government drone.
Of the North American government drone.
Yeah.
Any average flight speed.
Yeah. Of an unladen swallow.
American or European?
That's the classical
American.
drone.
Worried.
Well,
Have we
it doesn't
exhausted
matter
this?
because if you have the drone, it doesn't have to be. It can be 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Shoot American military property on public land? Go ahead. See how that.
There's
see
a
how that
lot
turns
of
out for you.
people that would have wet dreams about doing that.
Yeah, and there seems to be some sort of underlying tone of a sect or a group of people, or at least it's my understanding.
Tinfoil hats. Just call them
Tinfoil hats. Tinfoil hat wearing motherfuckers that seem to want to start another revolutionary war.
Yep. And bring on Armageddon.
Right. And they
some
seem
kind
to be
of apocalypse.
predominantly conservative because they're worried
Yeah.
about the freedoms
And
that
or
they
libertarian.
don't have, that they want to reduce the amount of freedoms for people of gender and color and of sexuality, but
We are
people
all
are
of
infringing
gender.
on their freedom to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of a less than majority.
Yeah.
Well, no, women are majority, so that doesn't count.
I don't understand. I just don't understand that standpoint of freedom for me. Everyone give me freedom. I want freedom. You can't have any freedom?
May I please have some freedom?
Are you gay? No.
I would like some freedom, please. Can you give me freedom?
No.
Why not? Because nobody can give freedom.
I am government, man. I am come from the government.
The one thing about those tinfoil hat people that want to start the revolution and think that it's important, they don't realize that the world doesn't end at the 49th parallel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. isn't the world.
Mm-hmm.
If the U.S. were to implode, it wouldn't have that big of an impact on the rest of the world.
It would be bad, but the U.S. has a culture
Physical
that's...
or economical?
Economically,
Because
but
physically, that would have a major impact.
economically it would have an impact, but everything would come back from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If China imploded like that, we'd be fucked. But that's different.
The American culture is incredibly narcissistic at its, and that's part of their culture.
Yeah. Well, I love those people that scream. When people are coming here from the Philippines and East India, predominantly. That's where a lot of our immigrants are coming from. And they're
Welcome,
screaming
by the way. Welcome to Saskatchewan. If no one's
Yeah.
welcomed you yet, welcome.
Yeah.
Sorry if you've been made to feel otherwise, but you are welcome here.
Yeah. And if you're not, just kick the guy that's not welcoming you in the nuts. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We got your back.
They're idiots. We're embarrassed of them.
We are. We are.
But these people don't realize, the ones that are saying that they took our jobs. Well, no. The only reason a lot of these people moved here is because of all the outsourcing that North America has done to their countries that's destroyed their economy.
Right.
Like, how do you have a good, solid economy when you have people working for pennies on the dollar in sweatshops or in call centers or making clothes in Milan for no money?
For many of them, that's better than anything they can get there to begin with. So, I mean, they have deeper problems. It's not like we're detracting from their problems. We're adding to them through globalization.
Right, and the worst thing they're doing...
They already have problems.
The worst thing they're doing for our country by coming here, the worst thing they're doing is increasing our economy. Mm-hmm. They're spending money that they're earning while they're here.
Particularly in Southwest Saskatchewan. It is really darn hard to argue that you need to keep immigrants out. Businesses cannot keep their doors open without hiring immigrants.
A lot of the local immigrants were actually brought in by the companies they work for.
Yes.
People generally leave Saskatchewan.
That's an expensive. It's an expensive and time-consuming process to start bringing in immigrants. It is not cheap. If they had a ready source of full-time available, willing and qualified people, then they would not bother bringing in immigrants.
Well, part of the reason we see a large influx now compared to historically for immigrants in Saskatchewan, the reason's twofold. Number one, and talking to a lot of immigrants, a lot of them can bring their families over a lot easier in Saskatchewan than anywhere else in the country. It's a lot easier to immigrate to Saskatchewan from
because of
anywhere.
the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee
Because of our
Program,
need,
probably.
Yeah. But probably the biggest reason why we have so many people coming here, they're not actually immigrants. Well, they are, but they're not immigrating from out of country. They're coming here from Toronto and Calgary where there are no jobs.
Hi there, guys.
A lot
Thanks
of
so
them
much for the job and opportunities. I appreciate it.
Yeah, go home.
Because, well, I do. I appreciate it, and I'm
You're from
really
a beautiful
enjoying it.
town out east.
Well, it's called Belleville. I don't know that it's a beautiful town.
C'est belle.
C'est belle. Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling to come to terms right now with how I feel about national identity, because we are definitely moving to a more global centric world. I don't know if is that a hypocritical thing to say?
We're Americanizing.
Yeah, I think the whole world is. to a certain extent.
It's a small world.
Yeah, I'm just getting. I'm getting,
except for like Africa and all the other really big countries.
The whole world has been Americanizing for decades. It's going to stop Americanizing soon. The U.S. has been the global economic superpower for so long, and that is slowly going away. China is becoming the economic superpower.
Right.
They're going to start exporting their culture soon. So we're going to start China-fying, or whatever you want to call it. That's going to become more and more. I mean, it's all a matter of degrees, obviously.
And we're probably going to start seeing a lot more civil unrest in the U.S. to the point where there might be some pretty harsh actions happening within their own borders, based on resources and everything, because they're going to start losing out on resources. They're going to have no money. They already have no money. They're just going to not be able to borrow any money.
I just think to sort of cycle the topic back around to what we were originally discussing about hate speech and about, well, nationalism and tradition, I mean, are huge factors in the way that we view ourselves and the way that we view the world around us, and
the way people do in general, not the way we do. Because I certainly,
I have no national.
When I say we, it's the royal we. It's we as a species, because humans are intrinsically tribal. Right? We all want to belong to.
Thank you for that correction, because I have absolutely no national self-image at all.
Right. No national identity, and that's fine. And I'm in the process, I guess, of rescinding mine. I mean, I feel a certain amount of pride for being Canadian, but I mean that's just tradition, right? That's because I've been told my whole life I grew up in the best country in the world, right?
I just got back from a couple of weeks vacation down in the States, which was lovely, and there were so many places I visited. Particularly, there was this one place called Carmel on the coast that I visited that I just got there and went, I want to live here.
Sounds tasty.
But then, I know, caramel sauce. Anyways, it's a beautiful little town on the coast, and we had a lovely time. But the point being, we were sitting there going, well, what if we decided to move here once the kids are out of the house, or, in 15 years or something? Well, how would that work? Well, then you've got to basically operate within the American system. You don't get your Canadian health care. You don't get to be really part of Canada. Well, then do you decide to be a snowbird? Do you, in what fashion are you still Canadian if you basically, have decided to flee the cold north and go live in California? So I haven't entirely figured that out, but maybe the solution is just to go the snowbird route.
I'd go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Fuck the rest of everything else you named.
That would be pretty nice.
New Zealand would be awesome. And at least they speak English. I mean, if the language weren't an issue, I'd go to a Scandinavian country.
Iceland.
Or Iceland, yeah.
Iceland. The thing that's awesome about Iceland is all their laws are really awesome, because they're a very liberated, liberal country.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you can't learn Icelandic unless you were born learning Icelandic.
Yeah. Well, their low population base has to do it makes for very uncomplicated and liberal political.
Yeah. You can't be uber conservative if your population base is really low.
Is like 100,000 people.
New topic?
Is that a good time?
If you'd like.
Good time for a break?
For a break?
Sure.
Yeah, let's shut it down. Have a break.
Yeah, I wanna breathe back in that place, 'cause I need some breathing room. Cutting off all beds, take it cool your jets, baby cool your jets.
All right. Well, I'm going to put on a tinfoil hat for a few minutes. Keep in mind that I'm not a conspiracy nut.
I see no difference either.
and I tend more towards the rational, but and you shouldn't never say but, because you ignore everything a person says after they say but.
I do?
Well, that's part of
the rule.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know I was
I'm
supposed to
not a
behave that way.
conspiracy nut, but and then you usually just ignore everything they say after that because the show
big
points out how they're a
butts.
conspiracy nut.
I see.
So I'm not a conspiracy nut. That being said, it seems like our government's actually completely against us. I'm actually reading, sorry. I know that the government itself can't harbor a position or act in any malicious way, but that's just how it seems. The puppeteers seem to be making our country dance in a way that's absolutely and abjectly going against the grain of what our population seems to be striving towards. I only have 2 examples that I wrote down while I was at work. Environmentalism in corporate Canada is number 1. In a study done in 2008 by the Gandalf Group, see, I'm quoting some sources while I go.
The gray or the white?
It's pre-gray, actually.
Pre-gray.
This is back when he had a job, and there's a group of hymns. Group of him?
Group of hymns.
Well, it's a group of the Gandalf.
So a
group.
gospel?
The Gandalf Gospel.
Well, we get a few nerd points in there.
So it was found that over 80% of Canadian consumers consider the environmental impact of purchases prior to making them. It also found that 83% of Canadians say they are motivated to make personal changes that would benefit the environment. 85% of Canadians want standards enforced on producers and labeling that certifies and explains the terms such as organic, low emissions, and green. 86% of the Canadians want regulation and labeling to clear up the confusion over environmental claims. So even though the vast majority are concerned about environmental and climate change, the following occurs. According to Stats Canada, Canada has about 0.5 of the world's population, but contributes about 2% of the total global greenhouse gas emissions. That puts Canada among the highest per capita emitters, largely as a result of the size of the country, the low density of population, the high energy demands imposed by the climate, our resource-based economy, and the volumes of good we export. In 2005, slightly more than 23 tons of greenhouse gases were emitted for each person in the country. That represents 8% per capita increase since 1990. Now that we're basically pimping out our freshwater lakes and parks to the highest bidder, when the Kyoto Accord was signed and forged, this is what Harper took as a position for all of Canada. He said things like, no, what I am supportive of, frankly, is not ratifying the Kyoto Agreement and not implementing it. It's the same man who lied brazenly on national television in 2008 to 210, claiming his political party had the strongest plan to deal with greenhouse gases. Stephen Harper also was quoted for saying, yes, and Kyoto won't do anything but help to help acne either. This is not what it's for. He refuses to consider the cost of not implementing Kyoto, which the famous economist Nicholas Stern estimated at 5 to 20% of GDP. Harper also refused to consider the economic benefit of implementing Kyoto in energy savings and the benefits of marketing Canadian green technology to other countries. Anyway, there's a whole bunch more Harper quotes I'm just going to skip over. Basically, he's an anti-Kyoto, anti-environmental prime minister.
So the point
Anti-science.
being that
Anti-science.
it doesn't really look like much of a democracy when you have
The entire country being on board with something, and then the leader of that country just deciding to be against it
Arbitrarily.
yes,
Yeah.
because he's got moneyed interests telling him that that's what he's for. Which reminds me, which I had to Google it up. This is not just a Canadian phenomenon, of course. There was a Princeton study that just came out that said U.S. no longer an actual democracy. They had done a study. Basically, they've been doing the same kind of monitoring over years and had said now it's an oligarchy where wealthy elites wield the most power. So, and it's, in much the same ways, different mechanisms, the same kind of thing in Canada.
Yeah, it's never been anything but an oligarchy.
But by their measures, it's become considerably worse than it used to be.
It's always been an oligarchy with the face mask of a republic. They're
It's
pretending
never
to
been
be
a
a republic,
democracy.
and they call themselves a democracy.
It's never been a democracy.
Yeah, that's what they call themselves.
Right.
But they actually pretend to be a republic, right? A representative sort of system. But they've always been an oligarchy.
It's almost like a
So have we.
a skit,
to
right?
be fair.
It's almost like a Monty Python skit. An
Yeah,
oligarchy pretending to be a republic that's actually, or pretending to be a democracy.
Masquerading as a democracy.
Yeah.
Well, all a republic is a country without a king or queen.
Yeah, a republic is basically just a representative. It's sort of halfway in between democracy and aristocracy. It's the same thing as the ancient Greek republic. It's just a bunch of representatives, you know.
It's a
in a
representative.
Senate. Yeah, it's a representative government. That's
It can be. I don't
What
know
we
if
all
it
pretend to have.
necessarily
So-
has to be, though.
So the biggest difference between our government and the American government is the state government has more power than it does in Canada. Here, the federal government has way more sway. That's the biggest difference between our two governments. Like there's nuance differences, small things here or there, but the biggest difference is, as a province, we have no say. No province has any real say. The federal government determines, and then they hand out as they see fit.
Pretty much.
they're pretty good at their propaganda up here too.
Yeah.
One thing that Canadians know very little about is what our government does. You know,
It's true.
Compared to the U.S., we're surprisingly ignorant about exactly what Harper's doing to destroy science in Canada.
Well, we watch
Like
American
the omnibus
news.
bill
Yes, like that.
that nobody cared about.
We watch American news, and Canadian news covers American events anyways. Right?
Yep,
I mean,
pretty much.
our common outlets
And
do
the
not focus on what's
Kardashians.
happening.
Everybody knows about the Kardashians, but has no idea about omnibus bills that have just dramatically changed a whole slate of laws that most of even Harper's party, if they broke up those into individual bits and were given the freedom to choose whether or not to vote for them, there's probably 3/4 of that they wouldn't vote in favor of because they know their base would not be in favor of it, but they're not allowed to do that.
For being so right wing, he sure is like selling our shit to the states and to corporations.
I thought that was part of it.
Sure.
That's
I was going to say the Kardashians are important.
That's
I
not
mean,
That's not a very good way of conserving the country. though.
They took over the Bajorans for so long.
Yeah, like
To distance myself, I don't know anything about the Kardashians or the omnibus bills.
There's going to be like 3 people who got what I just
I got that. Obviously,
I my eyes glazed over. I didn't get it.
said.
Bajorans,
Yeah.
Romulans,
Oh,
Cardassians.
this isn't
Oh, my
nerd cred.
Jesus, people.
Oh, I get
No,
it.
wait, no, sorry, Jesus wasn't there. Example number 2: Canada has proven to be pro-equality. The government has for rights, just general, flat-out, regular rights for people. There's still a lot of fighting for a lot of other rights, but everybody has some of the same basic equality.
It's a matter of degrees,
Right.
that sort of thing.
And access to the
There's
equality and
still a
the
ways to
quality
go
of their
there.
equality.
Yeah, well, what I'm talking about is like our rights of religion, freedom from and of religion, all that stuff we have.
Actually,
No, we don't.
We don't have freedom from
I
as
know.
much as we have freedom of.
It depends on
Yes.
how you word it. Freedom of is the same as freedom from.
No.
Yeah, but it actually isn't in Canada.
I know.
Right, so
But we actually win more often when it comes to removing religious displays from public things. And that's displaying freedom from religion just as much as freedom of. But that's not my point.
well, that's interesting though.
The Senate is about to sit for the third time in discussions of passing Bill C-266, which is Pope John Paul II Day.
Oh yeah.
So we're pro human rights in this country. That's undeniable.
Yeah.
We're not anti-gay. We're not pro-gay. We're pro-people. But gay people have all the same rights we do. So why are we going to canonize into Canadian culture such a misogynist as Pope John Paul?
Yeah, who helped cover up pedophilia and encourage people
is
not to report.
Well, he was bigoted. He was anti-women, anti-abortion, anti-contraceptive. You know, your standard Catholic, but he took things a little further than a lot of them. So why are our liberal MPs? Why did they vote to make this into a law?
Why would anyone? in Canada.
And something that really pisses me off, even past the fact that it's Pope John Paul II Day, even though we're not a Christian country, it's going to be on April 2nd, which bothers me because that's International Autism Awareness Day.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is a little more important. But, of course, I'm a little biased on that. But
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what can I say, man?
But that whole fight is the government doing things that the rest of the population wouldn't agree with if they thought it through.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just think back to Stephen Fry ranting about how that Pope spread the notion that not only did he think that contraceptives, condoms, didn't prevent or mitigate the spread of AIDS, he spread the lies that they caused AIDS, which, I mean, has devastating effects throughout Africa. Like, he spread this message all over the place. Like, that guy is responsible for
Millions
so many
of
people
deaths.
getting AIDS. It's ridiculous.
Well, not just Africa, because people emigrate out of Africa.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and probably thanks to some stupidity like that. There's people there that seem to think that if you fuck a virgin, that cures your AIDS. Mm-hmm. Well, once you dabble in ignorance and lies and superstition, a la the Catholic Church, well, you might as well just go along with the whole rest of the unfounded nonsense. Yeah. And then you end up with a whole bunch of people raped that, thanks.
That's throughout
good job.
The Muslim community as well.
It would be there, but that's not exclusive to Muslim Africa.
No, it's not. Not at all.
That would be in some, I'm not sure which places, but I've heard of that being a thing.
A conversation Mike and I were having earlier, it'd be cool if you weighed in on, because you used to be super Catholic, right?
No, Protestant.
I was Lutheran.
Yeah.
Just saying.
We're short on Catholics.
We were talking about the hypocrisy, in general. Mm-hmm. And how, and we've all discussed before how Westboro Baptist Church they're probably the closest adherents to the actual Word of God, right?
For sure they are.
So does that make every other person a hypocrite? Like this, Mike and I were having this talk in the car.
The Bible is the most enormous book of multiple choice, pick your own ending, and it really conflicts any of them.
That one.
It conflicts so much with itself that you can't really say, you're following it correctly and you're not, because there's, it's got so much nonsense in it that it's a schizophrenic book. So
which one?
That's really fair, actually. That's not what we were focused on earlier at all, but that is true. Really fair. How do you follow a book that has a whole bunch of contradictory rules? Yeah. Really? So who's the true Christian?
Yeah.
Nobody.
It's a pick your own adventure book. Yeah. And if you really, if you're going to pick your own fucking adventure, be nice. That
was our conclusion earlier too, is that there really is no such thing as a true Christian then.
So people get a bit annoyed with, some of the liberal Christians because, you're not really, you're just picking your own thing. Well,
it's just a war of citing passages. Have you ever heard any two sides of that argument take off against each other? It's just citing passages and misinterpreting them.
At least the Quran is pretty straightforward.
You creatively interpret them. They can interpret them however they want, and who's to say which is their correct interpretation, right?
God.
None.
Nobody. So it's a pick your own adventure, and if you're gonna, follow along with the religion and decide that culturally you're a Christian and you'd like to just not make waves and you kind of like believing in that, well, then believe the nice stuff, and that's fine, and I don't care. But if you're going to be an asshole about it and pick all the asshole stuff to emphasize and make an important thing in your daily life, then, don't expect me to applaud you for it.
Well, the people who interpret things that way interpret them to push their own personal agenda.
Yeah, because their God holds the same beliefs as they do, amazingly enough.
Isn't that the funny thing about religion?
It's so amazing. Yeah.
God is so much like you.
No, you're just so lucky to be born to the right family and the right religion at the right time.
You won the geographical lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And the religious one.
Yeah.
Just so lucky that you got born into a family that believes in the right version of Christianity.
Yeah, it's the same lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get to bash religion on Easter weekend. Yay.
Well, it's not like he's going to hear us when he's dead. Come Sunday, we might have to start being nice again, but we got a couple days of leeway.
When he gets back, now he's going to be pissed.
Who's going to hear us when we're dead?
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah.
He's
The
dead.
dude,
He's dead for another day.
the dude who gave me the day off yesterday.
Oh shit! I hope that's not a spoiler.
Oh, yeah, he
He's
died.
coming back.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Jesus season 2.
It's not much of a sacrifice if he's just going to be resurrected, now, is it?
Yeah.
It's not a sacrifice if you're just going home.
Yeah. I'm going to get myself killed to free you from the ramifications of myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And regenerate
Thanks,
like you're in a
Jesus.
video game.
Thanks, Jesus.
Yeah. Don't worry. You'll
Only
respawn.
with superpowers the second time.
I'm going home to meet my father, and then 3 days later, wait.
I am
no,
my father.
I'm really leaving this time. I swear.
But I am my father.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Why have I forsaken myself?
The only other thing I was interested in talking about is the Alcubierre drive. Does anybody know what that is?
No.
No, but please tell us.
that's a new drive system that we might be able to use to reach Mars.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, not to reach Mars. It's possible faster than light travel. So it's something we could be able to use to travel many, many light years in just weeks or months.
Is that the actual bending space-time one?
Yes.
The bubble?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the warp bubble.
Yeah, the warp bubble.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, no, I
It
read all
sounds
about
like
that.
sci-fi Star Trek.
It sounds like Star Trek.
thingies.
That's where the scientist, his name is Alcubierre, of course, got the idea from
well,
Star Trek.
That's because a lot of modern tech ideas come from Star Trek.
Did
Yes,
Did you
they
know
do.
that the
'Cause a lot of them
sliding
are
door came from Star Trek?
Yes.
How come they don't make that noise then?
They dedicated an entire television series to
Like
stuff
this
that
noise.
we learned from Star
Yeah.
Trek.
Like the cell phone
I remember
Yeah.
seeing that one
we have because
particularly.
of Star Trek.
Yeah, now all our smartphones we can do stuff. Thank you, Star Trek.
And the latent fantasies about green women.
That goes along with the holodeck that they're working on
They're working on a holodeck.
with green women.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, the Oculus Rift really only has one use, doesn't it? Back to this drive.
Well, you
Yeah.
know who always determines tech in the entertainment industry? It's kind of the
public.
same thing,
Supply
Yeah.
and demand.
or the porn industry.
Well, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Supply and demand.
Yeah,
We discovered this new technology. Can we fuck it?
Oh, jeez. But back to the Alcubierre drive. There's a number of different things to discuss. Time travel. There are a few physicists who think that it enables time travel back in time.
That's crazy.
Is that based on proximity to Earth?
No, it's not relative. It's
Okay.
It's not time frame.
So it's absolute time travel?
yeah. thanks for
Time
clarifying.
dilation doesn't apply because objects aren't technically moving faster than light inside the bubble locally.
Right.
So it has absolutely nothing to do with the whole relativity,
Okay.
time dilation. They think that it actually could travel back in time relative to, say Earth, sure.
Is that a byproduct of the engine's use? Or is that just a feature?
That's
they the same
that's only
thing?
on the GT model.
It goes faster than light and back in time. Or does it go faster than light or back in time?
It goes faster than light.
and-
but
okay.
but for an extra $1,700,
Yeah.
you can actually get the back in time feature.
See, that's the hard part. That's the difficulty that I'm having with it then.
The difficulty I'm having with it is that it's bullshit.
Yeah. On the face of it. Because if we do develop it, we would have known by now.
Yeah, if we can develop it, we already have.
That's interesting.
When do we want time travel? When do we want it? It's
Yesterday.
irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
It seems like
Yeah.
bullshit to me because it's not like events that pass us by are still out there somewhere and we can travel to them. The problem with time travel is that time doesn't exist.
no.
No.
So we can't travel through it.
It doesn't exist in the same way that a
It's not a
centimeter doesn't
destination.
exist.
No.
That a pound doesn't exist. They're units of measurement.
Einstein talks about time in terms of perceived time, right? And how that's relative.
I'm going to travel to the number 4. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You mean nonsense?
Right.
Nonsense is nonsense, indeed.
But we're not done with that, because I think the faster than light potential is pretty fascinating in itself.
No, that's pretty interesting. Some have argued that the energy required for it would be greater than the mass of the entire observable universe.
That would be true if you're in space. If you're bending space around yourself, that's different. Because to move faster than light, you have to. It's infinite mass. If you're trying to move mass faster than light,
You're actually not moving at all.
exactly. You are not moving. You're just creating a wave, and you're riding that wave.
Yeah. But these are actual physicists. Some of them have argued that the energy required would be far too great.
What's his name?
Michio Kaku.
That guy. He was actually talking about that like over a year and a half ago on his crazy science. Oh, it's science fiction science. The science of science fiction. And he actually he does a lot of cool stuff on that show. Like he shows the engineering and the potential way of actually building a lightsaber, a real one. It's obviously it's a plasma saber.
He shows a lot of best guess theoretical stuff.
Right.
Right. I learned about collapsible waveform from Michio Kaku. Not directly through a video.
Yeah.
He didn't come
Call him up.
He didn't come to my house. Although that would be interesting. Maybe we should start like a Jehovah Witness style.
Michio Kaku witness.
Yeah.
I just butchered his name. He's not going to let me into his religion.
Michio Kaku.
It sounds like a disease.
Dr. Kaku.
Have you got
I think he's
something
a
else
doctor.
there on your?
Yeah, just the
Little
last
list.
thing about this warp drive.
Yeah.
Apparently, theoretically, it's all theoretical. The bubble, all the particles at the front of the bubble would all bunch up so that after it's finished moving and it stops,
It destroys.
anything in front of it would be destroyed.
Yeah, disintegrated.
So, I mean, if we go to another planet, let's see if life's there. It won't be when we get there because we'll kill it all.
That's why we just park next to it.
Yeah, you got to park nearby and walk the rest of the way.
Aim might actually be important.
It's difficult.
You know where you park? In the ghetto.
That's a good Cartman impression, man.
Thank you. Don't edit that out if it was good.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, well, I've got another little topic if we're
Yeah.
getting to exhaustion on that one, which
I
is
think so.
much more down to earth. There was
I see what you did there.
there's a study out. They did a study on beards
They?
On beards.
I remember
Beards.
Yeah.
this.
and facial hair.
I learned that I'm
And-
sexy.
And the question is, have
Anecdotally.
we reached peak beard yet or not?
Have
I
we
haven't.
reached peak beard?
I haven't.
Define peak beard.
Well, peak beard. Basically, they've done a study that says that that women will find facial hair attractive up until the point where most people have it,
Yep.
and then it becomes more attractive to not have it because you stand out.
Balance
So
of
is having a
availability.
beard reaching a critical mass?
That's basically the
In terms of
question, and
critical
it may,
beard.
in
Critical
some
beard.
areas, it may
Peak
have already
beard.
reached peak beard.
Like Seattle.
Or parts of New York where all the hipsters hang out and
Like
everybody's
Seattle.
or Seattle. I don't know. I haven't been to Seattle for a lot of years, so since all the bearded people, but it's been funny like watching 30-year-olds go around with great big full bushy beards. There's even a few in my family with great big beards. Where 5 years ago you would never have seen that, but it's an interesting sociological little study on what people find attractive or what they think looks good. Because, for a while, having a mustache meant, that you were cool. And then it meant that you were a kitty
Pedophile.
diddler. And then
It's
you were
amazing how
just
that swing can
ironic.
happen.
And then you're just
RJ.
ironically having a mustache. And then you're ironically curling your mustache. And
do
then it
something
becomes
ironically.
cool. I guess so.
Sociologists have known this for a long time, anthropologists. Like once upon a time, the most attractive woman was one who was rather large. But that was the rarest because
Yes.
people who actually got to eat well
Got to be fat.
were
Were
fat.
rare.
So fat people were attractive.
Yeah.
Now, what's
I need to
rare
go there.
is being able to eat well, right?
Yeah.
Being able to eat all
Dave
the
and I need to go
vegetables.
there.
Sure. So, don't we all? But we've always known. I mean, that's the only thing that explains the modern obsession with the virginal, 14-year-old looking stick insect. That's what's attractive right now.
With,
Well, and
with
part of that-
strap-on inflatable booblets.
If you notice that the super skinny female is the most attractive right now because we have the most obesity we've ever had.
Yep.
Human nature tends to the average.
Tends to the rare.
No, the average. So if you, and this is another study done by paleontologists, sociologists. They
Very recent paleontologist.
they took, I don't know how big the sample size was. It was a large sample size of men and women. I think it was in the U.S.
Yeah.
And they got them to flip through pictures and pick out the most attractive male and female. And what they came to was the combination of all of these people that they made. They processed all of them into one person, like one man, one woman, and it was average.
Of course. That doesn't mean that people tend towards the average, though.
No, genetically,
No.
we tend to try to move our whole species to the average.
Speaking
The
to
composite looks really plain and androgynous, but each person's choice is really, really far out from average. That's the thing.
Generally.
But when you combine them all, the composite looks very average.
Yeah. I do know one thing, and I can't cite a source on this, but apparently a lot of our attraction to mates comes from facial symmetry.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
It's
up for
indicative of
grabs
good
is how
genes.
much hair is on that facial symmetry.
I do know that my income goes up when I grow a beard because people often offer me change because I think I'm down on my luck.
Oh,
I end up looking like a homeless person.
When I shave, I get better service at Starbucks because I think I'm better looking then. Probably because everybody at Starbucks has a beard. So I'm the oddity.
So,
there.
but by per capita of that small sampling, you
Yeah.
are the one without the beard.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Back
I'm
to the whole
1%.
anecdotes isn't data thing.
That was a small sample. There was 2 baristas and Gumby. So a third of that population didn't have a beard.
Sorry, I know I killed it, but that's okay.
No, it's
I don't
good.
mind.
Yeah.
You just said that
It's okay, I'll forgive
baristas
you.
have beards.
I'll forgive you due to your attractive facial hair.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're getting special privilege
yeah,
for being one
yeah.
of the elite.
Yeah, you get a pass for that.
Yeah.
For being too lazy to shave your face.
oh! Here's another little
I
story I
clearly
can
shaved
add to
fairly
it.
recently.
Apparently, it is now a thing to have hair transplants onto your beard area
On
from
my beard area?
elsewhere on your body, and I'd be curious as to what is the best harvesting source.
Armpits. Because I'm not saying the obvious.
Scrotum.
Legs?
Did you just do all that just so you can say scrotum?
Yes,
I would
You
just
could
a
have just
big-
said scrotum. Who cares?
You're welcome to say scrotum.
that would be funny. To have a bunch of pubes transplanted onto your chin.
I've seen
Why,
So that you're-
why is your beard straight and curly?
It's not.
If you can't grow a proper beard, you end up having back hair transplanted onto your
Oh
chin.
my
If you can't grow a beard, you probably don't have back hair either.
Well, you never know. People have all kinds of different variations and patterns, right?
I don't think my back hair has any pattern.
I can tell you that from the female population.
From
I
the
thought you were
female
going to say perspective.
No. I don't know it,
do.
I assure you.
So he moved a bunch of hair to his. She moved a bunch of hair to her face.
Yeah. I was gonna say the beard thing does not hold true. Because it's exceptionally rare for women to have a beard, and it unfortunately that is not what how do I say this nice? I'm not attracted to it.
They make good money in circuses.
It's not generally seen as an attractive feature.
So it's not just rarity, is what you're saying.
No, it can't
There's
be.
something else
That's the
to
point
it.
that I'm making. There's something else
Yeah.
to it. I think it's because the beard is now seen traditionally as a sign of virility and masculinity. Right.
I
So
mean,
that's
that's
what's
pretty
attached
To
to
take
it.
this to
It's traditionally
an
a
extreme.
guy thing, yeah.
White tigers are rare, and I don't want to fuck one. So it's
well,
not
you're
just
weird.
rarity.
But glass tiger.
Might make an exception there.
It aids and abets in the lovemaking process.
Yeah, clearly it has something to do with being a female human.
Yeah.
And humans with beards aren't female, generally.
Generally.
That's the problem, I think.
The Braincast podcast would like to apologize to any female listeners that have beards for the insensitive comments of one Mike.
Either pre or post-op.
Yep.
I don't apologize for being insensitive. I'm just funny.
Most of the time when women do have a rather lush beard, it's because of some kind of polycystic ovary. There's some kind of hormonal
Something that happens
upsets.
after menopause.
From some form of Polish.
There's some genetics certainly.
Polish
there,
is a syndrome.
we would
I
like to
think-
apologize to everyone who's
It's a
Polish.
That was spoken by a Polish descendant. If you can't tell by the caterpillars mating on my face, that are my eyebrows.
Jeez, we're getting all racist today. Racist.
As
and
long as we
sexist.
insult everybody equally.
Fuck the
right?
Irish. I don't know.
Fuck white people.
And the Russians.
Yeah.
Oh, at least we don't fuck the Russia and Putin.
Fuck the Russia.
Fuck.
Well, hey, no,
Russia.
actually, that's fair. It's fair to say the Russia, because a lot of people are saying the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And the name of the country is Ukraine. Not
Oh.
the
It is
Ukraine.
Ukraine.
Or, according to Vladimir Putin, it's New
Little
Russia.
Russia.
No, New Russia.
Actually, according to Vladimir Putin, it's my crane.
That's a good one.
According to Putin, it's none of anybody else's business.
Yeah. Duh.
Or it's a training exercise.
It's a dick measuring exercise.
Sort of.
Now, I don't know why he's building all the ovens, but
No, I don't think that's happening.
No, it's just an enormous dick measuring
that's already been done.
exercise.
Otherwise, he probably would.
He's
Well, we've already-
liberating pro-Russia wannabe citizens in his mind.
Yes.
A lot of Canadians come from Russia, so we should go liberate Russia.
He's flexing. Oh, on the Daily Show, they had a little thing about that. It was I forget if it was Samantha Bee or one of those ones, had gone to Brighton Beach or somewhere where there's in New York, where there's a whole big little Russian settlement, and was trying to figure out what the risk was that Vladimir Putin would come over to Brighton Beach and try to annex that because of all of the ethnic Russians there who were kind of in favor of Russia and its expansionist ideas. So,
Wait,
That's a
yeah,
good
Brighton,
segment.
that's part of New York.
Yeah.
Oh, they can have it.
Samantha Bee is pretty awesome.
I
Yeah.
think it was maybe Samantha Bee.
The writers.
Oh, and I have to say, Stephen Colbert is going to be going on
Yeah.
to take over from David Letterman, and I don't know who they're
Which-
going to get to fill in for Stephen Colbert now.
Tip
It's
of the
the
hat
Colbert
to
Report.
Stephen Colbert.
Well, the
And
show will just
wag the
cease to
finger.
exist.
It should.
Yeah. It'll just
But they'll
cease
have to
exist.
give us They'll put in another show.
It's funny
hopefully.
because Craig Ferguson, in his contract,
Hilarious.
he was part of his contract for renewing, because he's probably besides Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, he's probably one of the greatest talk show hosts that's ever existed. He's fantastic, and part of his contract was that if he didn't get David Letterman's spot when David Letterman retired, that the studio would pay him out like $2.5 million. Because they were planning on giving it to him. So now he just made a
Really?
couple $1,000,000 by not getting the job.
Interesting.
I'd be interested to hear the story there.
Yeah.
I just told it to you.
No, I mean,
Do you want me to say it again?
The justification for promising somebody that, it seems a bit odd.
Thank you. And why it didn't end up going to him if
Yeah.
such stakes were on the table.
He's saying, cite your references, motherfucker.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing was
To the Google machine.
it was a bit funny that little Stephen Colbert, there was a little Twitter thing to try to get him kicked off his show because
For being racially insensitive.
to the Chinese.
He's insensitive to everybody.
Yeah. Because he was making a satirical ching chong, ding dong, whatever, committee for Chinese, for Orientals or whatever.
No, it was for racial sensitivity or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like
like
Racial Awareness Week or something.
Yeah.
Please say or whatever.
It was.
It did say or whatever
it
at
did.
the end.
Yeah.
Which was mocking the Redskins. They had made some kind of effort for Original Americans or something. Redskins Original Americans Club or some such nonsense. So he was mocking them, and then a bunch of idiots got all up in his grill trying to run him off and get him canned on Twitter. So it was, I forget what the hashtag was, but
It was cancel Colbert. It was
cancel
hashtag
Colbert.
cancel Colbert.
Hashtag cancel Colbert. Yeah. So just after that, he gets Letterman's spot, which was lovely. So everybody started saying, could somebody please start a Twitter campaign to cancel my show? Because I'd like to take over some other better
so
show.
here's the news release. Sorry, it was more than $2 million. Dave Letterman's retirement could net Craig Ferguson $8 to $12 million.
Wow.
Why 8 to 12?
Even if he doesn't get Dave Letterman's Late Show, which he didn't, Craig Ferguson stands to get $8 to $12 million consolation prize.
Why 8 to 12? Do they roll a die 4?
A
He has to
clause,
spin the wheel.
a clause in Ferguson's contract with the network automatically awards the Late Show host a payday of at least $8 million if someone else is signed to Letterman's replacement.
Why does he need the Late Show if he already has the Late Show? That seems silly.
The Scottish comic is likely to receive that hefty check since industry insiders doubt that CBS would pit him head-to-head against Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon.
Maybe because they're too much the same. No, that's probably not it. I wonder why they didn't give it to him. Maybe they wanted somebody more American.
He's
I'm going to
American.
give myself a flask.
He's Scottish.
Craig Ferguson? I mean,
Yeah.
he's an American by citizenship.
Just like every other American is.
Yeah.
If you're not
Yeah,
a citizen,
but he
you're not
wasn't
American.
born in America, so
So
I
he
don't know
can't be
what difference
president.
that would make.
He
Yeah,
That's the only difference.
He has an accent.
Everybody has an accent.
he
That is
doesn't
not.
have a homegrown accent.
Remember that
Like-
whole
like a
professional
boss-
cock thing?
But
we were
like a
talking
Boston
about?
accent, a New York accent, a Deep South accent.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference.
But
Yeah.
they're all local ones. They're not Scottish accents. So I'm wondering.
Canadians
I don't know.
have an accent, eh?
Apparently, I learned I do have an
Are
accent
you
when
out
I went
for
to
a
States.
Baby, cool your jets is what I say. It never had to end this way. Killing the vibe when you up and quit.
Okay, so that's it. Thanks for listening. I want to thank Destin for taking the lead on this episode as I was busy and couldn't come out. If you want to keep up with the show, check us out on brainstormblog.net, on Facebook at facebook.com/brainstormpodcast, and on Twitter @brainstormpod. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spreaker, and if you want to help the show, give us a rating and write a review. Share us with your friends, family, and colleagues. They'll thank you. I'll try to have the show notes for this episode and the last episode up as soon as possible. Thanks again, and hopefully you join us next time.
So
Yeah, what's that Chinese guy that's awesome?
Michio Kaku.
Yeah, him. He
Who's
actually
Japanese.
Japanese.
It's okay, Gummy. They all look the same.
Guess we'll edit that out. Hey, it could be the contrast was out on my TV a little bit. Oh, I guess we'll edit that out too.
okay, start over.
Corey,
All right.
leave it in.
So,
We discovered this new technology. Can we fuck it?
Edit this out.
yeah, do some editing there.
Yeah, do it. Do your editing magic.
Waiting for Mike to interject with any kind of motions on it. Nicholas Stern.
What?
Anything?
Edit this out.
No dumb here.
Do not dumb here, not dumb area here. I like that one notion. If the best thing you can say about your position is that it's not literally illegal to express, then your position is pretty crappy. What?
Are you out for a rib? That was more Scottish than anything. Cut that, Corey. Cut that shit right out.